Hey, Chanel here with another Sew Bit. Today we're going to talk about fabric width, with a D, width. I found that there's, on the back of the patterns, I'm finding a lot of my beginner students didn't know this, but that's why they're in class. So right here it says 45 inches or 60 inches, and it has it on pretty much every pattern. Sometimes you will only see 60 inches because knits come 60 inches and they don't even bother telling you about the 45. That's if a pattern is for a knit fabric. But 45 inches means how wide the fabric is from selvage to selvage. And selvage is the raw end of, like, usually have a border or little thread ends, and that's the end of the fabric where it was like hooked to the loom or cut off the loom, and then it's that finished edge right there. Sometimes it's finished. I'll show it. I'll show you what a selvage is. So right there on the end of the fabric. So they don't all look the same, but they'll be all in different kinds. Sometimes they'll have writing on it and stuff. Actually, this fabric here, right here, you can see this has a very defined border edge of that. That's called the selvage. That's where the length grain goes. That's a whole nother topic, which I'm going to be covering. So fabric widths come in, why it says 45 and 60 is, that's what most fabrics are. You're going to find your cottons, your cottony fabrics, quilting fabrics, flannels, kind of cottons. A lot of fabrics come 45 inches wide. That means it's from selvage to selvage that wide. And on the bolts, they are folded. So like you can see this one, two selvages are right here, and then there's a fold right here. So that means from here, from that fold to the selvage, it's probably like 22 and a half inches on the fold, then it becomes 45. So that's how that works. I'll show you on the table. So if you have a fabric, if you end up finding a fabric that's like 52 inches wide, because sometimes they do, they'll come like 50, 52, 54, 56 kind of thing. You'd want to go with, let's say you had it 52, you'd want to go with the yardage that is given to the 45 inches wide. If it's like 56, 58, then go to the 60 inches wide. And it all depends on how they give you the cutting layout. So this is in the instructions, usually page 1 or 2 is the cutting layouts right here. And you can see right here that says 45 inches, and then this one says 60 inches. So they're going to be laid out differently depending on the width of the fabric, because like a 60-inch wide fabric, you can put the fabric or the pattern pieces in, you can get more in because it's wider, basically. So a lot of times, like, you can make a simple skirt with literally 3/4 of a yard of fabric because you can put two, you know, they're all across the whole width. But if it's like 45 inches wide, you need like one length for the front, one length for the back, kind of thing. You actually need you need double, like maybe 1.5 yards for a skirt. So a lot of times the 60-inch wide, sometimes it's more expensive because it's wider, but you need less, and sometimes it's less. So I'm going to show you right here. Put the camera down here and show you the different widths of fabrics. Okay, here we have some basic bolts of, this one's a Kona cotton. It's on the fold right here. So if we went from, this is over here from, this is the 1 inches, 1 to 0, and I can put it on the measurement, the cutting board here, and it goes to 23, but my selvage, they're not exactly lined up. So selvage to selvage right here, you're at 22 and a half. So I would say this is a 45-inch wide fabric. Also, a lot of the bolts will tell you where the right, this one says 44 inches right here. So they'll tell you what's the width. Here's a little decorative metallic one. That again is, this one's about 44 also. Then we have 60-inch wide fabrics. That's actually this one here. And here's the selvages here. And from selvage to selvage here, I go from the 0 all the way over to there to the end is just about, it's 30. So that would mean this whole width of fabric, 60 inches wide. I can fit more patterns on it. Here is another fabric. This one, from selvage to selvage, is about at the 28 mark, so it's 56 inches wide. So a lot of times people expect it to be totally 60, and a lot of times I do find them around 56, 58 inches wide. Usually I would go with the 60 on here, but I want to see how, I'd look in the cutting layouts to see how much they squeeze the pattern pieces in here. Then you're going to find vintage fabrics. This actually fabric is an Asian silk, and I thought it was 30 inches wide, or 36. A lot of times they were 36, the vintage ones. But this whole fabric, this is selvage to selvage right here, is right at the 30-inch wide. So this is a vintage, literally only 30 inches wide. So you're not going to get much patterns in here, and you're going to need a lot more yardage. Also, interfacings, which are I have that in another sew bit, those come 22 inches wide, so they're pretty narrow. Also, you're going to find border prints right here. So this is a border print where you have the design right at the edge, real pretty little edging right there, and then you have your fabric up here. That width, you actually have to cut this whole thing. This would be cutting your skirt going down the cross grain, which actually usually has a little stretch to it because the length grain is usually the stronger grain. And you'll have to reset all of that, really figure out your measurements. Here's another border print, really cute one. And this border print has it on both sides. So if I open this all the way up, I have border print at that edge and a border print on that edge. So I've had my students make this skirt as long as, you know, it's they're not too tall. And then you'd actually hem it right on the bottom there. So border prints, you have to measure your pattern a little differently. You got to cut your centers here and your lengths here and your waist up here. So that is what fabric width is. See you in the next sew bit.